Mired in controversy for allowing players to play as the Taliban, the Medal of Honor developers were preparing an authentic modern shooter, and while they may have backpedaled and named the enemy's opposing forces, the campaign remained authentic, even consulting Special Force operators. But would this make for a great game, or would it suffer from the same issues as the lackluster Operation Flashpoint Dragon Rising? Well, unlike Dragon Rising, Medal of Honor 2010 does have a more prominent story, albeit a short one. While it is fairly generic, its primary focus is on the soldiers, who don't really have clear motives outside of following orders. Find the bad guys and kill them, essentially. This is at least until you get towards the end, where they try to make it have more impact. There just isn't enough time for the story to provide enough of an impact, though it does do an okay job of making you feel like a soldier that's thrown into the worst situation, albeit with a moderately more Hollywood approach. The gameplay is also fairly standard. Guns largely handle well, though they often have pinpoint accuracy at full auto, with a surprising amount of kick when in semi-auto. Ammo is plentiful and can be requested from allies most of the time, and enemy weapons are also fairly solid alternatives if you actually run out of ammo, which you can do in certain missions. Towards the end of the game, I actually used enemy weapons as my designated marksman rifle. Despite their lack of optics, I found them much more manageable to control semi-auto, and I would then use the laser precision of the guns given to me as effective CQC weapons. There are also driving segments that are functional but largely dull, and a level where you get to play as an Apache helicopter's weapons operator that frankly isn't all that good either. However, the worst segment involves calling airstrikes from an A-10 Warthog. It again is a functional but rather boring segment, despite the awe it's trying to create and the masses of depleted uranium rounds being fired from the sexiest sounding gun in history.
Oh yeah, right there.
Visually, Medal of Honor has held up relatively well, although it is rough around some of the edges. It is average for a mid-7th generation game. Voice acting is also fairly solid, and the sound design for the weapons is also fairly good and offers a decent amount of punch. However, one of the biggest blunders is the music. You see, the Medal of Honor games are famous for their music if nothing else. This game really falls flat. It's just run-of-the-mill tracks that sound like every other score from any other modern shooter. I'm not saying that it's bad, it's just nothing special, and often fades into the background as you play. Like many 7th generation games, Medal of Honor neglects accessibility. While it does have subtitles, there are no in-game way to change spoken or written languages. There are also 3 difficulty options, with medium giving me a fair amount of challenge, though not quite as much as it did when I originally played the game. Despite the ability to remap controls, I feel that this game may be difficult for people to finish, especially if they have limited mobility, as it has no built-in controller support. Medal of Honor 2010 isn't the most convenient. It is available on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, as well as being available digitally on Steam and EA. I found that it ran fairly well out of the box for me, but there has been some issues reported in recent reviews. The options are fairly bare bones, but it reacts more favorably to modern hardware than the typical game of the time. I also failed to see any bugs or glitches, but did have some gripes with the sensitivity of the mouse, even after I turned the settings all the way down. I would say that Medal of Honor 2010 is a bit of a disappointment. While its gunplay is fine, other elements of the game are rather dull. This includes a story which is far too short and failed to deliver any impact despite its more authentic approach. It ultimately doesn't feel any different than any other modern shooter, and even offers less with its lackluster story. Because of these failings, it earns a meh. But let me know what you think about Medal of Honor 2010 or any of the Medal of Honor games in the comments below. Check out my last review on The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and until then, this has been Rob the Slob, and I'll see you in the virtual commute.